Hello there jet ski fans and welcome to another video. This is a midweek update, which means I've put together some clips of me working on the X2 after having it out for my last ride. I also threw in some riding clips to make it a little bit more interesting, and I hope you guys enjoy. In the next video that you guys will see, you'll see me testing out some of the modifications that I made to the ski in this video, and you're also going to get to see me test out my new Hero 10. So hopefully it works, and hopefully I get some good footage. I already know because this is after. But you guys don't know yet. I heard that when you go through a tunnel, you're supposed to rev your engine. I was just doing some post-ride checks on the X2. I was going to open up the exhaust and see how much water was in there. I want to know basically if I'm getting an excessive amount of water injected. The reason why I think it could be extra now is because there's more pump pressure, a lot more pump pressure from the new impeller. And so it could be bypassing the valve more than it was before, even though I've closed it off some. Just watching some old Jet Ski Brothers videos, listening to Jacob talk about how the 701 has bark. Anyway, I've got my exhaust apart, and it's surprisingly dry inside. I thought there was going to be a lot more water in there. I'm actually going to pull it completely off now and drain the water out and see how much. I've been kind of keeping track by pouring the water out into things. Anyway, basically the pressure valve for this, or the flow control valve, is a pressure valve, and so it will open at a certain pressure. So if the pump is making enough pressure at, say, 3,000 RPM, it will overcome the ball valve and start pushing water in at that speed, or that engine speed, that pump pressure, and that could be a problem. So I'm not sure. That's acceptable. Very scientific. I now have the rear bracket welded in place. I added a little bit of reinforcement weld to strengthen it up a little bit, but I think I've actually found the problem, the reason why it cracked. I've removed the gasket out of here and tightened up this rear section, and you can see there is still a substantial gap through there. You can see all the way through. So what is quite obviously happening when I'm tightening this up, it's causing a lot of strain. It's pulling everything together, and this rear bracket was the weakest point. What I could probably do is not use the dowel pins on the rear of the pipe, and then that would allow this to set into place. I suspect that they used the dowel pins from the factory to support the weight so that the bolts aren't supporting the weight, because the bolts are much more likely to loosen off if they have to support the weight of the whole chamber. I think this is actually going to work. What I did was put these bolts in finger tight without the dowel pins. I put these bolts in finger tight, and then I tightened these ones up. And now if you look here, you can see there is almost no gap. And even when I loosen the bolts off, that gap doesn't increase. So it means that there's not a lot of tension on the mounts. I've commented to you guys before that I do a lot of checks on my engine. I'm taking the head off. This is not the first time the head or even the cylinder has been off of this engine. After either the first time or the second time running this after putting the new pistons and cylinders on, I tore this completely down. I took the engine out. In the video that I filmed, I showed you guys taking the head off, but what I didn't show was actually removing the whole engine. So I took the engine back out, rechecked all of the piston clearances, checked the ring end gaps. This time I'm not going to go that crazy, or at least that it's not the plan to go that crazy. I've got all of the nuts removed off of the head, and as I say that, I see one more nut. I'm going to remove the head, check to see if there's any leaks or any signs of leaking. Oh, there's another nut. And I might actually try fitting the other head on there without a gasket. Just tighten it down by hand and do a quick check on Squish. If it seems reasonable, then maybe I'll go further with it and actually do some proper checks on it. Maybe I'll run it this weekend, who knows. I'm having a look at the top of the cylinders and everything looks pretty good. The main thing I was concerned about was leakage because I've reused the head gasket. And yeah, everything looks pretty good. I'm going to take a much closer look. Here is the head itself. And it kind of looks like some water might have been getting in here. I'll have to take a closer look at that. All right, I removed the head gasket and this makes me feel better. I don't know what this wash down area is here. I think just the way the fuel and air comes in through the transfers. Kind of interesting that it does it a lot more, substantially more on the rear cylinder. I don't know how well the camera picks it up, but there's this red ring of glue around all of the cylinders. There's a little spot missing here, but that spot is on the gasket. I don't know if I can show you guys that. Where is it? Right there. So there's no missing glue from the surface. So that indicates that it's not leaking. If it were leaking, it would blow the glue either in or out. And it doesn't look like it was leaking on this side either, so good news, good news. I've got the head installed with just a few nuts, and I just finished doing a squish test. And I can tell you guys that it is definitely on the safe side of things. Let's see, we'll zero this out and check. And I am at 75 thousandths basically. So that is a kind of a ridiculous squish. I'm gonna put this head on and see what it is. I have a feeling that most of the squish area is inside of the bore of the cylinder. I'll remove the head and show you guys what I mean. It's actually quite difficult to show you guys what I mean using the engine itself, so I figured I would use a spare cylinder and this roll of plastic to demonstrate what I mean. So by squish remaining inside of the cylinder, what I mean is the piston crown actually doesn't come up level with the top of the cylinder like this. So when the piston goes up and down in its stroke, it actually leaves some room at the top. So you actually have some existing squish inside of the cylinder bore. So even if your head is completely flat, even if there's no squish built into the head itself, you're still going to have clearance between the top of the piston and the cylinder, just due to the fact that the piston doesn't come all the way up in the bore. Probably a good idea would have been to plane the top of the cylinders off, but the cylinders are in my engine and I'm not taking them out. So perhaps when I do some porting, I'll also remove a bit of material off the top of the cylinders. All right, so I just popped the green head back on and rechecked the Squish. It is at 56 thousandths. And so, yeah, both of these I'm checking without a head gasket. So this head is machined off, I believe, 25 thousandths. And the remaining Squish is approximately 66 thousandths, which seems kind of ridiculous to me. So what I'm going to do some math and calculate it out. And to play it safe for a little while, I'm actually going to make it so that I have a Squish of about 50 thousandths, maybe a little bit less. But I've got my heads mounted up in the mill. I'm going to remove some material. The head gasket is about 9 thousandths thick, so I'm going to take that into consideration. I want to keep running a head gasket. I've now machined 30 thousandths off of the head. I installed it and checked it without a gasket. I now have it installed with the gasket, but this is the test piece of solder that I did before installing a gasket at 47 thousandths, which means that it will be 56 thousandths with the gasket in there. It's a 9 thousandths thick gasket. As you guys can see, I have it completely assembled now and ready to take it out testing. I'm not going to be pushing any limits. This is very conservative, and the reason why I'm doing this is because the head's going to need a little bit more rework, or I might actually use a different head. So what I was talking to you guys about earlier about the Squish being in the bore, I'm going to end up having to machine some of the top of the cylinder off in order to keep, how do I explain this? You guys may remember that there was a 17,000th step between the Squish band surface and the gasket surface. And so I've actually machined all the way through that, and I'm now cutting into the Squish band area. So what that means is I actually have a step or a flat spot in the Squish band that's not part of the taper. I don't know if this will show up on camera. Let's see here. But there's actually a flat spot. Yes, you can see it there quite clearly. You can see the lip. There is actually a flat spot at the edge of the Squish band because when you plane the head, you remove material that is part of the Squish band. I know this is probably confusing for some of you, but basically what I need to do is recut the Squish band so that it comes to the full bore of the cylinder. So it needs to be 82-ish millimeters. And then I need to remove material off of the top of the cylinder to bump up my compression and reduce my Squish band rather than removing that material from the head, because this will happen. So what that means is that not all of my Squish band is tapered. Some of it is flat and some of it is tapered. I now have the exhaust tightened down into place, and it went way better than expected. I assembled it without putting the dowel pins in here, and it allowed everything to line up perfectly. So what I did is I snugged up all 8 bolts in the elbow. There's 4 back here and 4 up here. And then I finger tightened these ones in as well. Once it was all done, I tightened up these ones and then took these out, put Loctite on them, thread them back in and tighten them up, and there is no tension on it. So that it's not, all of the bolts go in very easily and there's no tension buildup on it. So I'm hopeful that that won't break again. My next video, which will hopefully be released this Sunday, is going to be me not only testing some of the modifications that you saw done in this video, but also me testing the Hero 10. I found a really cool spot to play around at the lake on the X2. Take 54 trying to say that. And I had a lot of fun. Hopefully it comes through on camera and you guys are half as excited about it as I am. That is going to do it for this one. Thanks for watching. See you next time.
My feet are so sore. My feet are sore from slamming into the floorboards. I need to put my jet trim on, but I need to finish the top first. Oh, my ear's sore from being folded over. Man, that pulls hard. So much fun. Need to have more than one person out though, right?